pedal wise, or are you able to, you sort of using pedals and things like that, or have you got any more bases to show us? Or
oh, I got my pedal board right here.
Excellent. Is that a Temple audio?
It is a Temple.
It is Temple audio, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is my pedal board. It's funny, I didn't really get like too into pedals. Like for probably the first year I was in 11 to 38, it was just bass to tuner to the Ashdown. And then, I just started getting a little bit more nitpicky with sound. And I had already owned the SansAmp here, and I'd used this for a very long time. And so I started putting this into my rig. So it was just, this tuner and this. And then, I just started, the rabbit hole began, as it always does with us musicians. It's terrible.
It is.
But before this, I ended up, first off, I made my own pedal board, as we all do at some point in our lifetimes. And that just wasn't a good idea. But then I ended up getting a Pedal Train Junior, because I only had like a handful of pedals. So I didn't really feel the need to get, something gargantuan. And I had my wireless system, and I had this for a long time. And that was pretty much it for a while. And then I ended up getting an overdrive pedal, like one of the first overdrives that Ashdown made back in like 2011, 2012, somewhere around there. And that was a pretty good pedal. And we'll get to my Ashdown overdrive in a little bit, but it was, you had your lows and you had your highs, and you had the individual volume and gain for both sides.
Yeah.
So like the idea of the pedal was really great, but it kind of just died on me after using it for so long. But then I found Temple at NAMM in 2018.
Yeah.
And my singer Ryan was like really hyped on their pedal board. He's like, dude, like you gotta come see this. And I saw them, and I was like, this is great. I wasn't able to keep my pedal board like overly organized. Like I didn't zip tie any of my cables down, so like my pedal train just wasn't like the cleanest looking pedal board that I could have put out on the stage. And it was because I just didn't have a whole lot, so there was just all this blank room. But then I saw these guys, and then I wanted to like really step up my game and actually have a pedal board that I would be proud of, dropping down on the stage, and being able to really talk gear with other musicians at a show. And that's what this pedal board was able to do for me. I just stepped up my game overall. And then I've got the Voodoo Lab on the back, many people do.
I was just about to ask for power and what you're using. So it really, the power supply is so important. Get the power right, and everything else will follow. It's probably the most important thing of a board, isn't it? A proper functioning board.
Oh, absolutely. And quick nightmare story for you. We were playing the Hilton at NAMM in 2019, and there was an issue with the power, and anything, I don't remember what happened, but like I plugged into the the power strip that was up front, and then my guitar player Domo, he plugged in like on his end on the other side of the stage, and both of our boards went out. There was like a power surge or something that happened, and it blew both of our boards. But luckily we both use Voodoo Lab, and the power supply took the hit, and it saved everything up top. So I can't express or stress enough like the importance of like a good power supply.
Yeah. And
because this would have been a whole lot of money to replace. But
it's a lot of money on the top. To risk that. And how does that board, how practical is that? I mean, do you take it when you go and you mentioned touring in Sweden and things like that? When you touring internationally, are you taking that with you, or are you taking multi-effects? What are you doing?
Yeah, I've got a Zoom multi-effect that I use for like flight aids or anything like that. there's a lot of complications in figuring out the stuff with Sweden, like what we can take, what we can't take. And I was going to take this, but they were saying like there was something weird with the airline where it was like anything oversized is like $300 to check. So I tried with my white P base here to take it apart and put it in 2 suitcases like a drug cartel, but it wouldn't fit my suitcases, so I had to go get a Gretsch Junior jet and disassemble that and take that in 2 different suitcases.
Yeah.
But normally I would use something like this. This is, you know, it's compact enough, and up top I've got an over-the-shoulder bag, so it makes it pretty easy to transport.
Yeah, so I can see the tuner on there. Probably the most important pedal there is.
Very.
But what's the signal chain? What's the path?
Yeah, so it goes from here. It goes into my compressor here. This is a Maxon CP9 Plus compressor. This thing is so good. Obviously, Maxon made the tube screamers back in the day for Ibanez, but they've just been doing their own thing ever since. They still make their own version of a TS9 and an 808. And they just make a whole bunch of other pedals too. And this is part of their 9 series. And you know, it's got your ratio, your threshold, and then it's got an internal doubler. So you can actually get up to like, I think 10 decibels of like pure clean boost with this thing. I never use it because I like to try and run my pedals into my amp pretty much like at unity.
Yeah.
You know, I'll push the volume a little bit like with my overdrive section, but like I try and keep everything as flat and parallel with. So it's good to have, but it's nothing that I really need. But I understand, you know, if there's like a funk player that's doing a lot of muting, you know, definitely boost that up because you're going to be probably compressing a little bit harder than, you know, a bass player is. But that's an always on pedal for me. I love it. I was using a Dynacomp for a long time, but it was coloring my tone in a very dark way. And I just wanted something that wasn't going to be overly affecting the tone.
Yeah.
So I found this and it's great. I love it. Never turning back. So this one's great. And then from here, we drop down to my fuzz. This is a JHS Mufeletta.
Yeah.
Hold it up a little bit more. This pedal is so cool.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of pedals that I see that are, you know, like a 5-in-1 or a 6-in-1. And it's like, but is it like I hear 5 different tones, but I only hear one that's usable. And that's just not the case with this one. Like you get like 6 quality and very individual and distinct fuzz tones.
Yeah.
So I love it. I usually end up going in between the JHS modded Big Muff sound and the Ram's head. Right now, again, phases. I'm in a Ram's head phase, which is what I'm mostly in. But the JHS mod is just a little bit too bright for what we're doing in the Pride. So the Ram's head is a nice balance of, you know, brightness, darkness, and, you know, not overly, you know, wall shattering, fuzzy. But it's a great pedal. I love it. It's really great.
And how?
And then
are you using the fuzz as a quite a big part of your tone, or, you know, is it dependent on the song? And
yeah, it depends on the song. Right now, there's I think like 2 or 3 songs in 11 to 38 that I kick the fuzz on, and there's maybe 1 or 2 songs in the Pride that I use the fuzz. And they're, you know, the songs are very garagey and, you know, kind of junky sounding. So the fuzz fits for that. It's, you know, those songs aren't meant for, you know, a traditional overdrive. So the fuzz does a good job of just getting that like older type of, you know, falling off the rails type of sound.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then from there goes into my triple shot, which is the newest member of my pedal board. That's also from my guys at Ashdown. That's part of their new effects line that they came out with last year. So I actually picked this one up from their booth at NAMM. So that's the newest addition to my pedal board. and it's like the best overdrive that I've ever played. It's so good. It runs at 18 volts, so it's a power sucker.
Yeah.
But it's great. You have your volume and drive for all three of your EQ sections. So you can control your lows, your mids, and your highs. And then it's got an internal mixer that blends the signal together and then just shoots it out like a regular pedal.
Wow. Nice one.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great. You know, you can really dial in, you know, something that's like, okay, like I want more lows to come out, but I don't want like the lower distortion signal. So like, you know, you can drop the gain, but boost the volume. So there's a lot of different ways that you can tweak this pedal to get some interesting tones out of it.
And that's important, especially when, if depending, I suppose, depends on the venue as well, and how you're running your amp, because it needs to be adjusted dependent on how you're running the amp and everything else, doesn't it? So you know.
And I mean, usually, especially with overdrives, like I do like having a blend knob on it so that I can get some of like my actual bass to come through. But the guys at Ashdown, like they clearly know bass. So this is actually probably the only bass overdrive, I would say, that I didn't feel like I was missing a blend knob. Because I can still get enough of that like grind and grit out of the bass that still comes through when the pedal's engaged, that like I don't feel like I would need to, you know, tweak anything to try and get like a little bit more like the, you know, because I use a pick. And you know, part of that is to get that like rattly, you know, more aggressive type of tone. But the pedal does everything I need it to do and probably a little bit more. I didn't think I was going to love this pedal as much as I did, but like the first time I turned it on, I was just like, oh, that's a sound. So I'm really happy with that thing. I love it so much, and it's never coming off of my pedal board.
Excellent.
And then also something pretty important to talk about is I got the Barefoot Buttons.
All right, yeah.
On all of them. This way, when I'm on the stage, I don't have to worry about like pinpoint accuracy when I'm trying to turn a pedal on or off, especially if it's like something in the middle of a song. I've got a bigger surface area that I can just kind of get my foot in the general area and tap it. Especially like if you're doing backup vocals or something, like you're looking straight ahead, like you can just feel for the button and just like click it. You don't have to, focus too much on your pedal board when you got these guys on.
Yeah.
And then after that, I've got my Rocktron noise gate. It's the guitar silencer, and I got this when I switched over to Fender in 2017 because obviously a lot of my basses do have a jazz pickup, so you get that 60 cycle hum. And this just quiets it down, just flat.
Yeah.
So it's a great pedal. I don't think people talk about noise gates enough, but this one is really, really good. And obviously the guys over at JHS Rocktron are really awesome. My rep, well, I guess he's the company rep. He's not my personal rep, but he's a bass player. So like he gets the struggles and situations that bass players find themselves in. So he even helped me set this up the proper way and gave me some tips on how to use it. And he was just right on the money. Normally I used to put this like right next to my compressor, but he's like, no, just run it at the end and use the effects loop on the top to quiet down the SansAmp. So the SansAmp is at the very end of my rig, and just go through the effects loop of the guitar silencer.
Well, it's funny. I mean, I said at the start about being the tuner being the most important one, and I run Strymon, Zuma, and OGI power units, which are all isolated and everything, and I've got the Evidence Audio SIS cables. So I do as much as I can in keeping everything silent, but dependent on the venue I'm playing on and dependent on what I'm stacking into the other there's still some noise that comes through. And so I have a noise gate for those times when, depends on the venue or whatever it might be, that you can just engage it and just cut that little bit of noise out. Because I just find that sometimes, no matter how hard you try and how much time and effort you put, or in, you know, how much you invest in a power supply, you will still always sometimes get that noise coming through.
Yeah, so this has become just such, and I mean, it works really well with the overdrives too. It keeps them really quiet, so that's, you know, huge help. And then, you know, obviously we have the SansAmp on top, which has been like my EQ and saving grace for over 10 years. I absolutely love this thing, and I've found myself in precarious situations where, you know, I've been told like there's going to be a backline and there isn't one, or you know, even just flag gates where it's like I don't know what I'm going to be getting like when I land, so like I'm just going to throw this in my bag and at least have this to be able to have some type of consistent tone.
Yeah. And the units are to your right there, the white unit.
Yes, this is my DI box. This is from the guys at Pinstripe Pedals. They're out of Oklahoma, and this pedal's great. You know, especially having all these pedals, like you kind of want that to be, you know, in your signal that's being sent out front. So, you know, if you're going off of an amp DI, or even like going up here off of the SansAmp, you're not getting everything.
Yeah.
So to have something like this that they can just run out the back end of my signal, and then, you know, have that as a blend option. You know, I've had sound guys use these two, or go off the amp and go off of this to blend the two together. And it's just better that way, I think.
Yeah.
Because like if I'm going to put all this work into this board and have overdrives and all this stuff going on, but only I'm going to hear it, like that's not the point of this. Like this is the sound. This is what's supposed to be sent to the front of house.
Yeah.